Hey, it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to the beautiful empowered harmonizers, and we're zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on a great viewer question that we just got in, and what does it really mean when you identify with self-abandonment? How does this occur in psychopathic relationships? A relationship with a malignant narcissist, someone who is duping you and is delighted by it. How does one get caught up in the dynamic of self-abandonment? This seems so complicated. What do you mean by that? When we talk about and really look at a relationship with a psychopath, you really need to understand a couple things. It's been identified as an antisocial personality disorder. We see this in kind of looming characters in movies, or we hear about violent criminals who have committed heinous acts and crimes that are violent in nature, and they feel no remorse, they feel no regret. They're repeat offenders. So if we just look at a couple of these components of the antisocial or the psychopath personality, it's important to know that there can be white-collar criminals, blue-collar criminals, people who are just out in everyday society who are psychopathic. They have a specific look that is very enticing or seductive. You look at them and you automatically feel attracted. Je ne sais quoi. I don't know how it happened. It just happened. They were just like my best friend instantaneously. They seemed to know me better than anybody. I felt so comfortable with them right away. They had such a sob story, or they really pulled my heartstrings when they told me this. I just seemed to love them with reckless abandon. Everything seemed to be so wonderful. These are the comments that we get when people have been love bombed or targeted by sociopathic individuals, psychopathic individuals. The main component in the thing to understand that really differentiates them is the fact of their neural wiring, how their brain works differently than the norm or the mass of society. So it's thought that between 1 and 4% of individuals are of this personality disorder. So when you think about that 1 in 100 or 4 in 100, think about how many people you meet in a day, a workplace, a lifetime, and that a certain percentage are going to be this way. And yes, these people know that they are quote unquote different in this way. They know that they don't feel remorse, they don't feel guilt, they don't feel fear, they don't feel love, attachment the way that some other people do, and they notice this is different about them by the age of 13, 14. People seem to be sentimental, boys and girls getting together, feeling drawn towards specific areas of the world that need to be helped. They see people developing in this manner, and they feel no such sort of kinship. They feel no such humanity. They don't feel this sort of warmth or connection, yet they see that they have what they feel or what they determine about themselves, or in their own self-assessment, is like more human than human powers. In other words, since they then begin to determine or self-assess themselves, that because they don't feel these same inhibitions, like the need for right or wrong, or the need to connect, they don't feel fear, they feel fearless, not just courage, but they feel fearless to break the law, they feel fearless to take what they want, they feel no sense of regret or remorse from hurting others or stealing things or breaking property or etc. This gives them what they feel is a superhuman ability to have power and control over society, companies, people, and oftentimes they are very asexual, which means they don't naturally feel a sense of attachment or love towards others. They don't feel the same sort of arousal, like that they get aroused physically. Yes, they get aroused physically, but they don't feel the same sexual way that most people do. In other words, for attachment or bonding or relationship, they do it more as an act of power. It's a way to take people down. It's a way, no matter what they would have said, pretty flowery things that they might have said to you, male or female, they are very parasitic meaning they live off of others in this way. They take great pleasure in taking sexual conquest from others. They make a name for themselves, really, even more than just like the malignant narcissist. They do this as a way of subduing and manipulating and hijacking others physically and getting them addicted to their hyper arousal. So the self-abandonment takes place in this hyper arousal state where they will arouse people in abnormal ways. In other words, using images, using statements, using their body to hyper arouse people to the point where it's not normal, where it's uncomfortable. Public situations, office situations, family gatherings, like where you're supposed to be having fun and then you're hyper aroused. They make this way to kind of break people down. It is their promiscuity or their high risk behaviors which cause others to abandon their sense of right or wrong. In other words, it's a temporary reprieve, what people originally think is from the stresses of everyday life. In other words, it's so stressful to get a man or to get a woman, and here this person's coming on so strong, and they're so into it, so to speak, and they seem to tell me all these right things, and they seem to make me feel so good. They make me feel like the strongest man. They make me feel like a woman. They make me feel this way by the things that they say and they do, that it just seems to be blissful. So it really feels like a temporary reprieve from the everyday restrictions of everyday life, the everyday sort of control that you have to have. So it feels like this very blissful, erotic state. But what you don't realize is that underneath it all is the pre-calculated, determined approach of the psychopath is to cause you detraction and detraction from that which is inherently good within you. In other words, they're using you parasitically to learn and assess and scope you out. In other words, they're able to observe and mimic other people's emotions. For example, you might see two quote unquote normal, i.e. healthy, functioning, empathetic people walking along a beach. Let's just say for a typical textbook example. They're holding hands, they're dressed in their casual clothes, they might be matching, she's got his head on his shoulder, he feels like a great provider, she feels so comforted by him, and he feels like the man, the provider, the giver, the results guy, and they are hand in hand. The psychopath will observe that and be like, that's so stupid that these people get caught up in these sentimental, quote unquote, loving acts, but I'm going to observe it because it seems like this is what people want. So I am going to mimic this. I'm going to learn and mimic. In other words, they don't really sometimes even really get people who they are. They just are there to entice, seduce, and detract and get them to give up their sense of self-control to be under their control. So at first, it's the detraction, and then it's the hyper arousal where they will try to incessantly make you think about them all the time to the point where you begin to self-sabotage a little bit. In other words, you begin to not be able to focus at work. You begin to not focus on your family. You don't focus on your finances. You might be giving a lot financially to them. That you might be trying to buy them a place to live, or you might be trying to plan for them. You might have fallen for a sob story where you're really hooked into them emotionally, that you're now trying to help them get on their feet, and while you lose your own balance in your own life. And the self-abandonment means you begin to become aroused by your own self-destruction. What do you mean by that, peace and harmony? Well, self-destruction means that you're losing footing in your own life and sense of yourself in a sort of intact integrity way. In other words, your boundaries, i.e. and your standards, your boundaries which protect you, i.e. what you say no to, where you draw the line for yourself, begins to become blurred and then non-existent, where they're able to really violate you in physically, emotionally, psychological ways where they're able to get you into discourse or looking at how they think, you will notice that the psychopath will think in a much different way than quote unquote a normal person. They will make quips, not like poetic statements, but they will say things what is known as word salad, where things don't make sense. For example, you might have a male who has an erection and stands by a tree and tells you, I have one of these. And he's getting your mind to flip and contort so that you think of his lower apparatus as like a limb. And then begins to, create a new meaning for trees in your psychology, which is hyper aroused in a sexual manner that is tied to this person. I know we're getting very complex, but then gets the target. And it's not a supply like we see in narcissistic where you're just trying to promulgate them, where they're really targeting you for your self-abandonment. You're basically loss of self-control, where you're engaging in an absorption of them rather than yourself. And these are very psychological terms, but I want to really provide a resource for those people who have been through this, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's very scary to try to talk about this with a quote-unquote normal person because they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And, you're trying to talk about how scary it is that you can't, you feel lost, and they're like, you're right here. Like people, they just don't understand it until they have gone through it or seen it in action or have studied these people. So you must know this as an information of how, and you must protect people. I'm here to build an awareness. But, and then people who are psychopathic will say in defense, you don't know how hard it is for us to control this. Yet, but they're destroying people, so they know that they can oftentimes use this for malintent. In other words, they know that people get corrupted and corroded and hurt by this hyperarousal. They see the enigma sort of speech with which they use, and it's not like funny little humorous things. It's a way it's usually in the vein of hyperarousal to get people then to be aroused by inanimate things and seeing inanimate things in a new way. So it's like a psychological sort of altered state with which you are put into, almost like a drug. Not almost, most definitely like a drug that your own body has concocted that has you seeing things in distorted way. And, this basically is then you're abandoning yourself in your own way in the world. You're abandoning your own comfort zone, and not for your own good, but for your own demise. And I use these strong words because that is what they will do. And the psychopath, because they don't have the ability to have a heart-to-heart connection, empathy connection, morality connection, humanity connection with life at large, they don't feel these things. They don't have these things. They don't listen to music the same way. They don't observe things like, destruction of people or rape or these sort of things in the same way. They don't think of it as horrible. They think almost like root for the villain. They see this as the way to conquer. And this is how they interact with the world. This is how they look at events differently than most people. And they will use this to position themselves and say things and draw attention, and then kind of use this energy that they project, which is part of their, every human has, like you might say, when you're in the presence of a priest, you might feel a sense of holiness. You might be in a very sacred place, like a church, and you feel the divinity. You might look at a flower and see beauty. Well, a psychopath, or you might see another person, a teacher who you feel is very professor-like. So there's an energy that comes off of these people. Their discipline shows, their holiness shows. It's an energetic, it's a emotional energy that emanates from this person. Just like when you're walking down the street and you might see, a character that looks unsavory and you're like, I need to cross the corner. That person does not look safe. It's your subconscious mind. It's your intuition. It's your instinct which is your true self, which is telling you these things. So it is that mechanism which gets distorted. It's that connection within yourself which gets severed, and connection to something else very highly energized in a darker way, a darker meaning heavy, sadistic, pain, terror inducing mechanism becomes instilled or implanted in the individual, because in their energy, even, can be projected to a family, a workplace, where people feel this very unescapable charm or alluring, like they're just inexplicably attracted to this person. The look in their eyes, the reptilian gaze, which causes this self-abandonment, and then sort of like, it's difficult to pull yourself away from them. I would do anything for them. I would, leave my job, and I would do this, I would cross my own boundaries to do this for them. These are the statements we hear from people who have been in relationships. And I don't want to even say relationships, because they're not even relationships the way you would think of it in a human sense. It's more like an encounter with an entity, if you will. I mean, they're human, they are in a human body, but there's something inhumane about them. And so it's almost like an encounter with an entity is the way that I can put it, where it's very subhuman. But it's important to understand that this is what they do. They want you to think about them, all the time, and so that you abandon your own proponents, you abandon your own tenets, meaning what and who you are. And that's very scary, to be annihilated at the core level, or to feel that some entity has tried to mix you up to the point where this has occurred. So it's kind of like, where do you grab onto? And so it is this dissociation, it's this disreality, which you need to resensitize yourself and do not fear. So it's very important that you have exposed this person, understand this as a distraction, and that this was pre-calculated, and that you were targeted, and that this is just what they do. They find people who want relationships, they want people who are caring, they want people who are loving, so they can observe and take, and that this is how they quote unquote interact with life. And just be grateful that you have identified and are now separate and distant from, and then begin to rehumanize yourself, resensitize yourself, begin to have great compassion and embrace and self-forgiveness. I have made, and put the emphasis on you, even though it's difficult, I have made a grave mistake in trusting and trying to develop a relationship with this person who is really, a subhuman sort of experience for me. And I have made a grave mistake, and I have learned better judgment from this. I had an error of judgment. Unbeknownst to me, in the name of love, I had given and was led to believe I was providing and going to have a relationship, but that was all a mishap. That was a misleading of my senses, and I have my senses back. I have ownership of my senses, and I care for my senses and all the cells within me, and I protect myself so I will not be extinct. I will not be like an extinct species. I will actually give myself the sublime care and attention so I will not become extinct or extinguished by them. I will resensitize myself. I will have compassion. I will repeat over and over again, I am safe. I will re-instruct and repair my own nervous system. I am now taking ownership and control back from this entity, from this experience with this entity. My heart is mine, and my heart is safe. My heart is protected. It is protected all around, all through my days moving forward, because I have my awareness. I have my self-awareness. And I'm resensitizing, and I'm putting in front of me what I love. And I'm going to continue and to give myself images and impressions and repair that subconscious mind, which had been adulterated by this greed for human blood, basically, for human consciousness. Basically, that's what they were looking to do, and I'm taking it back now. I'm investing in my own internal real estate. I'm resensitizing, priming my subconscious mind, because that's where the healing needs to take place. Surrounding yourself with images, soothing sounds, 432 hertz music, beautiful natural sounds, sounds of nature, which oftentimes are very healing. Comfortable clothing, that which is highly comfortable, very soft, very plush, very comfortable. Getting rid of, those things that remind me or trigger those terrified feelings where I cannot think or I cannot focus or I am feeling sheer terror or sheer fear. I am no longer identifying, I'm disidentifying with that, and I'm not going to end up like the people on those, Jerry Springer shows or whatever you call those shows where people are like throwing chairs. Like, that's not for me. I'm disidentifying with that reality. Like, I'm not losing it. I have not lost it. I have recovered myself like I've recovered an extinguished species. I am still here, and I'm giving myself in all my senses that which is nutritive in healing. And furthermore, I'm going to seek healing by committee through podcasts, videos, books. I'm going to learn about this, and I'm now called forth to become educated about this type of person so I will not be endangered again. And I'm learning the tools of self-repair and rehabilitation, and I'm learning more about myself as a result of this experience. So I'm actually stronger. I'm building a stronger fortress, which is around my heart, my mind. It is knowing that there are entities out there which are after my personal gifts, which they are trying to learn and scope out. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to learn, and I'm no longer a host for such parasites. I am strong, and I am emblazoned with a light heart. I'm strong and emblazoned with a light heart. And now that I know this, excuse me one second as I move with my cervical collar here. And I'm asking myself now these healing questions. And what I was really taught to undervalue about myself and my life experience is, and I want you to write this through 1 through 10, what I was really taught to undervalue about myself or life experience is this, 1 through 10. And when you list these, oftentimes you'll list the things that you quote unquote feel that you abandoned or lost while you were in a relationship with this antisocial, malignant, narcissist, or psychopath individual. List 1 through 10 or list 1 through 20. And furthermore, if I didn't experience this sort of psychological hijacking or criticism or bewilderment or harsh judgment or the psychopathic gaze that had seduced me, if I didn't experience so much of this, I would really love to enlist 1 through 10. Now that I'm away from the gaze of the psychopath, I would really love to list 1 through 10, 1 through 20. Resensitize yourself, which means pay close attention to really imprinting these healing modalities and healing people around you as well to restore your humanity, because your humanity is in there, but you had become accustomed or required or addicted to abandoning this within yourself. So look at it in terms of a restorative process, a filling up the well, filling up the reservoir of wholesomeness, integrity, and personal values which you hold dear and sacred. So if you can list once again, 10 things that I hold dear and sacred are. List this out for yourself on a personal level, because these are the things that I want you to identify and see and unearth it from yourself, excavate it from that rubble, and you will become aware that this is still within you. And I want you to take hold of this list, and I want you to address and work on these 1 or 2 right now, and the rest of them this week. I want you to become part of these. Going and looking at books, going to your bookstore, looking at books, looking at music, going to listen to music on the YouTube, finding resources where these are, going and embracing these now, and having a focus, a very sharp, razor sharp focus on your recovery and rehabilitating, and then repeating over and over again, I am safe. I am rehabilitating all of my creative senses. I am safe and I am strong. I'm rehabilitating all of my healing senses. And repeat this over and over and over again. And I'm resensitizing myself to the wholesome and what is good. And I embrace and hold fast to what is wholesome and good. And that is mine. That is divine. That which is divine is mine. That which is mine is divine now and forevermore. Repeat this over and over and over and over and over again to yourself. This will reset your neurology, your neuroplasticity. It will get you back in the driver's seat. It'll get you back to basically the slam dunk for your happiness. Do this. It will get you back to that race. I mean, you'll be able to get back in the game of your own life, or really kind of the passion of your own life. But you need to reset this, especially in the beginning, in the first 3-6 months. You need to put this effort forth for it to work, and you must work on this on a consistent basis so it'll become automatic. But once you do this again and again, and you can trust me on this, that your strong affirmations, I call them your astromations, because it not resets you and your I am, but it resets it on a global level, a universal level, which means throughout your life, and then calling forth that good into your sphere of influence. It's sending out that message through the thousands of miles that surround the globe. You are calling forth that higher power. And trust me when you know it is there. Trust me that it will come to your aid. Life will always send you a person. Life will always send you someone to let you know you're not alone and you do not need to suffer this alone. Other people have experienced this. Even though it feels like you're the only one, you are not the only one, and your help is here. Help is here, and then hold on to it and begin to know that you must do these affirmations again and again and again into the hundreds and thousands of times, even writing them, speaking them aloud as I am right now, shouting them loudly, because when you set the verbal tone, that sends energy and healing energy into your body itself. Your body sets to the tone of your desperation and your desire, your need, your life preservation is resounding through your body. And your body needs to feel you speak this to know that you mean business and that your healing is here. In other words, it's resetting your consciousness. Just like if you've ever heard a tone of a bell that can make you cry. You've ever heard the sound of a violin that makes you weak, or like when you hear like a dog, there's one tone or one chord on the piano that makes a dog cry. Your healing tones can be healed by that. Your healing body, your emotional body can be healed by the tone of your voice speaking these astromations. You are resetting your focus. You have this commitment. It is making a commitment to your subconscious mind. You need to get the power of that behind you, and then as you do it again and again and again, it will become automatic, so that you will just have this already reset in your body. You won't need to repeat I am safe. You will then feel safe. You will then be safe. You will then become safe, and then 100% you will feel safe. You will not feel the insecurity. You will not feel the terror. But you need to reclaim yourself. You need to reclaim your sense of independence, reclaiming your sense of integrity, reclaiming your sense of humanity, reclaiming yourself of humanness, in caring and loving and vulnerable and lovable and magnificent and miraculous, in realizing that you have all these trillions of cells within you that are yours. They do not belong to the psychopath. They don't belong to the sociopath. They don't belong to the narcissist. They belong to you. Your hands and all the cells belong to you. Your arm and all the cells and musculature belong to you. Your solar plexus, your gut belongs to you. It is guided by the hidden forces of the unseen, which are guiding you to your best self, your best potential, your best experience, opportunity. But you need to open those doors, and you open the doors even wider when you acknowledge that this is what happened, this is the truth, I know what happened, I am not minimizing it, I am not alone in this, and I am heralding my own cause like I've never had before. I'm, putting a stake in the ground. This is my ground. I'm feeling it strong, and I'm holding my life like a shepherd to that which is good in life, and I'm drawing forth all the good. The flock of good people are coming to me now, and they are surrounding me now, and they're coming to my aid. People who are the unknown, even strangers, are coming to me and smiling. They're engaging. They're seeing if I notice them and can share a smile of goodness. I am attracting the good back into my life, and this helps restore me, my sanctity, my sanity, and my humanity by making this change, this energy shift. It is this which I will experience, and my experience is expanding on a day-by-day basis. And I'm growing the wiser for it, the stronger for it, and never again will I falter because my staff of awareness and security is so strong, my standard is so strong, it will not falter. My head will not look behind me. My hand will remain. I am protected 360 degrees around me, and this I know to be the case because that good which will triumph is triumphing now. And begin to repeat this and know this and keep this in your focus, and you will attract the good. You will attract power over this negative force, which has been nothing but a force to force you out of yourself onto giving to them. Reclaim your power, which has power over them. It is the power really of the Most High, and it is that which will restore you to feeling peace and harmony and embracing life even with stronger arms than you did before. It is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Thank you for asking for help. It is my pleasure to give, and you can only receive if you ask. So you must ask your guardian angels. You must ask your Archangel Michael, Joviel, Shamuel, Gabriel, those archangels which have their duty and their desire and their delight to help you to come to your aid. They are there for you. Trust in this message when I give to you now that they are there ready to help you and to come to your aid, but you must invoke them. You must ask for their help of these archangels. Learn about them if you wish, but just ask for Archangel Michael, Joviel, Shamuel, Gabriel, Raphael. Ask for them to all come together to help protect you and guide you and to liberate you